Hello there, and welcome to our news program coming to you live from Algiers on All 24 News with me, Karim Zachary. These are your headlines. Ukraine accuses Russian leaders of carrying killings of civilians in Bucha, where bodies were found lying on the street. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam announces she will not seek a second term in May when the city's pro-Beijing political elite picks a new leader. With nearly 86% of the vote counted in Hungary's Sunday's poll, Viktor Orbán has won a fourth successive term as the country's prime minister. Armed personnel in Sri Lanka clashed with a throng protesting the country's deteriorating economic crisis. Welcome again. Those were today's top stories, and we kick off our news bulletin with some live updates on the 40th day of the Russian military operation in Ukraine. Russia orders an official examination of what it calls Ukrainian provocation after Kiev accused the Russian military of massacring civilians in Bucha. Antonio Guterres says he was deeply shocked by images of dead civilians in the Ukrainian town of Bucha and calls for an independent investigation. Germany's defense minister said the EU should consider cutting off Russian fuel, a move that leaders had refused to do so far. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian leaders are responsible for killings of civilians in Bucha outside Kiev, where bodies were found lying in the street after the city was taken over by Ukrainian forces. Hossam Barkan reports.
Corpses everywhere in the Ukrainian city of Bucha, northwest of Kiev, where residents continue to mourn their dead after the withdrawal of Russian soldiers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russian leaders should be held responsible for murders and tortures in Bucha, where horrific findings have sparked outrage in Europe and the US.
I call on all our citizens and friends of Ukraine around the world who can join in this work and help establish justice to do so. The world has already seen many war crimes at different times on a different continent. But it is time to do everything in our power to make the war crimes of the Russian military the latest manifestation of such evil on earth.
In turn, Dmitry Kuleba, Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs, said that what happened in Bucha and vicinities is worse than ISIS.
Bucha massacre is the most outrageous atrocity of the 21st century. Without an exaggeration, by what we've seen in Bucha and vicinity, we can conclude that Russia is worse than ISIS in the scale and the ruthlessness of the crimes committed.
During a visit in the liberated suburb of Kyiv, the mayor of the Ukrainian capital, Vitaly Kilochiki, declares that the aggressor must pay the price.
It's genocide of Ukrainian population. More than sure, is that people in Russia and the Russian government have to pay for that painful price.
After more than a month since the start of the Russian operation in Ukraine, scores of civilians have lost their lives in the conflict. Armies of both countries have been involved in intense fights since Russian troops entered Ukraine.
The Kiev regime's claim of a massacre of civilians in the Bucha village in Kiev region has been rejected by Russia's defense ministry. The latter claims that the photographs and videos from Bucha are yet another fake news created by the Kiev regime for Western media. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Sunday called for new sanctions against Russia after the discovery of numerous bodies of Ukrainian civilians in the city of Bucha near Kiev. The incidents, which he described as war crime. Let's listen.
Die Ermordung von Zivilisten ist ein Kriegsverbrechen. The murder of civilians is a war crime. We must relentlessly investigate these crimes committed by the Russian armed forces. With our allies, we will decide on further measures in the next few days.
Zu diesen Gebieten.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview with CBS News US program Face the Nation that what's happening is genocide and that it's about the extermination of a whole nation. Zelensky added that this should not be happening in the 21st century Europe. Let's listen.
Indeed, it's genocide, the elimination of an entire nation and an entire people. We are the people of Ukraine. We have more than 100 nationalities. It is about the destruction and extermination of all these nationalities. We are the citizens of Ukraine, and we don't want to be subject to Russian politics. This is the reason why we are destroyed and exterminated, and this is happening in the 21st century Europe. So it's the charter of the whole nation.
Ukrainian soldiers brag about how their outnumbered army had taken on Moscow's military and recaptured the tiny farming village 70 kilometers east of the capital. The battle for Kiev is unfolding in neighborhoods like Lukyanivka, where houses and cars are destroyed, and two banned Russian tanks and an armored personnel carrier lie near a destroyed church.
I'm not competent to say, but most likely the church burned down here. And it did not burn down by accident, but as a result of arson or war. The war came, what can I say? The shooting, there was so much fire, God forbid.
White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain warned that Russia's special military operation in Ukraine is far from over, despite the claim by Moscow that they are withdrawing from Kiev and surrounding areas. Klain added that there is a lot of evidence that Putin is simply taking his troops out of the northern part of the country to redeploy them to the eastern part and relaunch a battle there. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a pre-recorded message asking artists and the world to support his country against Russia during the Grammy ceremony. Let's listen.
The war. What's more opposite to music? The silence of ruined cities and killed people. Our children draw swooping rockets, not shooting stars. Over 400 children have been injured and 153 children died, and we'll never see them drawing. Our parents are happy to wake up in the morning in bomb shelters, but alive. Our loved ones don't know if we will be together again. The war doesn't let us choose who survives and who stays in eternal silence. Our musicians wear body armor instead of tuxedo. They sing to the wounded in hospitals, even to those who can't hear them, but the music will break through anyway. We defend our freedom to live, to love, to sound. On our land, we are fighting Russia, which brings horrible silence with its bombs, the dead silence. Feel the silence with your music. Feel it today to tell our story. Tell the truth about the war on your social networks, on TV. Support us in any way you can, any but not silence. And then peace will come. To all our cities, the war is destroying. Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Volnovakha, Mariupol, and others, they are legends already. But I have a dream of them living and free, like you on the Grammy stage.
In Times Square, New York, Broadway stars including Tony Award-winning actress Lauren Patton sing in the rain to show their support for Ukraine. The wake includes a version of the song Do You Hear the People Sing? And the projection of the Ukrainian flag on the illustrative panels.
Say, do you hear the distant drums? It is the future that they bring when tomorrow comes. Will you join?
Residents in Moscow had shown support to the Russian soldiers who are operating in Ukraine since February 24th. Many buildings were covered by the letter Z and the ribbon of St. George with orange and black stripes, which become now the symbols of support for the Russian military operation in Ukraine. Carrie Lam, Hong Kong chief executive, announced during a press conference on Monday that she will not seek a second term in May, when the city's pro-Beijing political elite picks a new leader. Local media reports said Hong Kong Chief Secretary John Lee is set to resign to join the chief executive, but Lam declined to comment on any prospective candidates in the coming election.
I will not participate in the sixth chief executive election. In other words, I will complete my 5-year term as chief executive on June 30th and officially end my 42-year career in government. My intention not to run for a second term was expressed at the beginning of last year in 2021 to the central government, and it was understood and respected.
With nearly 86 of the vote counted in Hungary's Sunday polls, Viktor Orban has won a fourth successive term as the country's prime minister, while Peter Márkizai, head the opposition, denounced the results, saying Orban's party had more advantages in the elections. Nabil Khazini reports.
The miracle for the opposition did not happen. Viktor Orban, the Hungarian nationalist and populist leader who has been in power for 12 years, won the general elections on Sunday. A majority of Hungarians offered him a fourth consecutive mandate.
Dear friends, we have won a huge victory. A victory so great that you can probably see it from the moon, and in any case from Brussels for sure.
After the counting of approximately 90% of the votes, Orban's party, Fidesz, collected around 53% of the votes, while 35% went for the coalition of 6 opposition parties. But the opposition said the election were won by propaganda.
I will not hide my sadness and disappointment. We must recognize that these elections were won by propaganda, not by honesty or honor.
Preliminary results show the right-wing Fidesz party taking 135 seats in Hungary's parliament. The opposition was set to take 57 seats.
We are really waiting for change. We want to stay in Europe. We want a rational democratic state with rational leaders who make progress rather than take the country backwards. They have ruined our country. They have destroyed it.
That's what I absolutely consider to be good. A lot of positive things have happened in the last 12 years, an exceptional number, and I hope that this can continue. We are lucky to let it continue. We can keep it going, and we have to keep it going.
More than 200 international observers monitored the election in Hungary, along with thousands of volunteers from across the political spectrum.
Outgoing Serbian President Alexander Vučić claims a landslide win in the presidential election extended his 10-year hold on the Balkan country. He said his Serbian Progress Party won almost 44% of the vote in the legislative elections, and he positioned himself as a peacemaker and calm keeper in the midst of the Ukraine conflict.
The most important is to have good relations in the region, to follow step by step the European markets, but at the same time without destroying our links with our traditional friends. We make big efforts to preserve our relations as good as we can, not only correct partnerships but also friendship with the Russian Federation.
According to Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman, Iran didn't get any answer from Washington yet, and that they will only return to Vienna to sign nuclear deal.
For the moment, we don't have a definitive answer from Washington yet. If Washington answers the outstanding questions, we can go to Vienna as soon as possible. We won't go to Vienna for new negotiations, but to finalize the nuclear agreement, so Washington's answer is so important.
Armed personnel in Sri Lanka clashed with a throng protesting the country's deteriorating economic crisis on Sunday, April 3rd, after a social media blackout failed to put an end to another day of anti-government protest. Sofian Kenturi has more details.
In its most devastating slap since independence from Britain in 1948, the South Asian nation is confronting catastrophic shortages of food, gasoline, and other commodities, as well as the record inflation and crippling power outages.
Basically, we believe that the emergency that has been announced and the curfew and all these restraints that have been put on the democratic rights of our people is unconstitutional, illegal, and is not right by the supreme law of the land.
President Gotabaya declared a state of emergency on Friday, the day after the threat tried to attack his residence in Colombo, and statewide curfew was enforced until Monday morning.
So we are here to purposely show the whole country that the steps taken by the government to constrict the democratic space, the democratic rights of the people of the country, is a violation of the Constitution.
Opposition legislators and hundreds of their supporters attempt to march to the capital's Independence Square, but were met by troops armed with automatic assault weapons. A few hundred meters from the residence of opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, the road was closed and the trunk fought security officers for over 2 hours before dispersing peacefully.
In Pakistan, a no-confidence vote had been widely expected to remove the Prime Minister Imran Khan from office. But the Pakistani Prime Minister has decided to ask President Arif Alvi to dissolve the country's National Assembly and called for new elections on Sunday. Imran Khan said a foreign conspiracy is being planned to topple his government through a no-confidence vote tabled by the opposition.
A move to change the regime, an attempt against the 22 million people, and the no-confidence motion with a foreign agenda that was planned abroad was rejected. For this rejection of the no-confidence, I congratulate the entire nation. I have been receiving messages since yesterday. They were worried about what was happening. This betrayal was taking place in front of the entire nation. Traitors were sitting and were planning this conspiracy.
Learning to surf is a treatment for underprivileged children in Peru who have been out of school since the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak. It helps them not only to learn a new activity, but also enhance their sociability and environmental awareness.
I like to get on the board surfing, but what I like the most is catching a wave. I overcame my fear of catching one.
The sport and our interaction with them have helped them handle stress and some episodes of rage that were pretty common first.
In China's capital, Beijing, residents go to the graves of their ancestors during the annual Qingming Festival, also known as Tomb Sweeping Day, at a cemetery west of the city. Qingming Festival, also called Tomb Sweeping Day or Pure Brightness Festival, is an important traditional Chinese holiday. The festival is celebrated both in China and among members of Chinese communities around the world. The main activity that people engage in on this day is cleaning the tombs of their ancestors. For the first time in history, the iconic Times Square in New York hosted around 1,000 Muslims who performed the Taraweeh prayer. The event organizer told local media that Muslims living in the United States want to celebrate Ramadan in this emblematic place in the heart of New York City to show others that Islam is a peaceful religion. The duo of Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak have won the 2022 Grammy Award for Song of the Year, Leave the Door Open, after making their live debut at the 2021 Grammys. Silk Sonic released their debut album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, in November. Leave the Door Open also won the Grammys for Record of the Year, Best R&B Performance, in a tie with Jasmine Sullivan, and Best R&B Song.
I love you, G. Andy, I love you. I want to thank everybody that helped us with this album. I want to thank Charles, Andy. Couldn't be prouder to be doing this with you, man. Thank you so much.
And before we wrap up, here is a reminder of today's top stories. Ukraine accuses Russian leaders of killing civilians in Bucha, where bodies were found lying on the street. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam announces she will not seek a second term in May when the city's pro-Beijing political elite picks a new leader. With nearly 86% of the vote counted in Hungary's Sunday polls, Viktor Orbán has won a fourth successive term as the country's prime minister. Armed personnel in Sri Lanka clashed with a throng protesting the country's deteriorating economic crisis. Well, that's it for me, Karim Zachary, and the rest of the team. Thank you for keeping it here on All 24 News. Bye for now.